All right, so I'm going to start the meeting. Right, hold up, there's something called the agenda. I have this. All right, so I'm going to ask you to the Pledge of Allegiance.
Are we reading? Okay.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Kelly wasn't able to get on, right?
No, not yet.
Okay, so I need a motion to clerk pro temp until Kelly gets on.
Motion.
Meredith, is there a second?
Second.
Kristen, and I would like to have it be Anne Marie. Are you okay with that?
Yeah, that's fine.
All those in favor of Anne Marie being a clerk, comments or questions about that? All those in favor of Anne Marie being the clerk pro temp?
Aye.
Aye.
Raise your hand too. Awesome. Opposed? All right, motion carried 8-0. All right, so Anne Marie, will you do the roll call?
Sure. Ms. Flynn?
Here.
Ms. Stadler?
Here.
Mr. Cathliel?
Here.
Mr. Wolf?
Here.
Mr. Zhang?
I saw him here.
There he is.
Yep, thumb up.
Ms. Ewer?
Here.
I'm forgetting someone. Mr. White?
Here.
And Mr. Rakowski's here too.
Mr. Rakowski, I knew I forgot you. I'm sorry.
Well, and did you call Alyssa?
Alyssa Betterbit is, did she let you know, Meredith, or?
I think she must be delayed.
Yeah, she's delayed.
Is delayed? Okay.
Yep. All right, so before we get started with the agenda, we thought it would be appropriate to have a moment of silence for all the all the victims of the coronavirus or COVID-19. So if you could please rise for a moment of silence, that would be great. All right, thank you. So I asked Grace, I reached out to Grace, and I thought it would be good to get a student perspective as to how the students are reacted to the school closure and stuff. So I reached out to Grace, our student rep to the board, to see if she could partake in a little bit of the meeting, give us a student rep. So Grace, if you wouldn't mind starting out with the student report of one, how is learning going in this school closure environment, and how, from your perspective, you know, how's everything going and stuff?
Okay. All right. Thank you. Can you hear me okay? Or, okay. All right. It's definitely a very big change, especially since it all happened so abruptly. I think the teachers are doing a really great job of communicating with us, and they'll give us office hours, which helps, so we can kind of try and understand the lessons. But they're also being very flexible, especially with the workload and like the assignments, because like it's kind of hard to teach myself AP calculus, but they're being good, so that's great. It's just definitely a big change, especially since like this was supposed to be the second half of senior year, and now I'm sitting in my room all day, but I think we're all doing well, so it's good so far.
Good.
Yeah.
Does anybody have any questions for Grace? Go ahead,
I have a
Anthony.
question. Yeah, so Grace, do you have any asks for us? What you feel would make it easier? Or, I mean, I know we're all feeling this together, but.
Yeah, I think the whole administration, and especially Mrs. Soto, she's doing a great job with weekly emails and trying to like keep hopes up and spirits, and just letting us know everything that they know, just so we don't feel on the outs and we understand what's going on, not just so it's not all confusing. So it's going well.
Okay. And are you aware that the Beacon Mutual Aid Group and a couple other organizations, that in case anybody needs anything, you're aware to be able to tap that?
Yeah, I know that the lunch programs, I've heard great things about that, so that's one of the good things going on.
Well, Grace, I want to thank you. I know that it's a difficult time, especially being a senior, all those senior year things going on. And I want to thank you for taking a little time out of your day to update us on a student perspective, because we can only imagine, but to hear it from a senior that's going through it, it means a lot more to us.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Grace.
This is great. All right. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye. All right. So I'm going to move to the superintendent's report. Oh, I'm sorry. That was the student rep. I'm sorry, the workshop. Matt and Anne Marie, we're going to do a workshop on budget.
Right, and I'm just gonna switch locations really quickly because I'm having some Wi-Fi issues. So I'll be on in 1 minute.
Did anyone else lose power yesterday?
Yeah. Yeah, there's a lot of power outage in southern Beacon and in the area just north of the city.
I lost power for more than the day. It just came on around noon today.
Yeah.
Yeah, luckily I've had no problems.
Yeah, I was fortunate not to lose power either. I'm at Mount Beacon Park, north of Mike.
All right. I am back. Sorry about that. I have done probably 20 or 30 meetings in the room I was just in, but for some reason the Wi-Fi wasn't working, so I apologize. Anne-Marie and I wanted to provide a quick update just on where we are with the budget. Obviously, a lot of things are changing, and so we wanted to just kind of go through that. So we can scroll to the first slide. So we wanted to just take a moment. We've done this at the last few board meetings, but we want to take a moment and just talk about some of the things that we've accomplished over the last several years in the budget. So over the last 3 years, we've added 7 teachers to the elementary level to do class size reductions. That has brought our class size average down to about 18.5, and the range is also decreased quite a bit. So the range is about 15, I think, is our smallest class, to about 22 is our largest. So we're really proud of that effort, and that's taken 3 years for the budget. We added 4th grade instrumental music after we did it grant funded for a year. We added a social worker at Beacon High School last year. We added a 0.5 art teacher at Beacon High School. This one has been huge the last month, but we pushed hard over the last few years to go one-to-one with our Chromebook model for all students. And so we were able to deploy the Chromebooks really quickly and efficiently. The first week we were out. And so, a lot of our students are making use of them. So that's been great. And then we also really revamped and increased professional development in the district. And we've been really proud of those efforts, and we've updated the board in a lot of different ways about that. So you can go to the next slide. So there's not a lot here because, we were thinking about doing some shifts with scheduling at the high school, which would be increased staffing. And we were thinking of also possibly adding, some pieces of staffing. But with some of the changes with the budget, especially obviously with the revenue shortfall in New York State, which has been dramatic, that we are, our goal of this budget now is to hold steady in all the things we've accomplished over the last few years and to not be adding staff. So items that are postponed for a future budget year, I'm estimating that would be at best probably the 2022 23 school year, but would be to make changes to the high school and roundabout schedules. That would involve some extra staffing. We are postponing the business teacher that we actually had in last year's budget that went unfilled this year because we were looking for the, we were kind of struggling to find the right person for that. We want to hold back on that. Another area I talked about, elementary class size reduction. We're actually going to be able to save a position there. We had 3 years ago, we added an extra third grade teacher to Forrestal because of an increase in student numbers there. And so now those fifth graders will be graduating from Forrestal, and we won't need that one particular teacher. So that's another savings. And with people retiring, it's not anyone, it's not a position being cut. We're just sort of redeploying someone to kind of offset again some of our funding. So this is what we're really proposing is to focus on the amazing things we've accomplished over the last few years and to do everything possible to maintain those in this budget and hopefully next year's by really, an efficient and effective use of resources. So next slide. So Anne Marie's going to walk you through this part, and then we'll do questions.
Okay, so this is something different that we haven't seen before. When we got our final state aid runs, we had a line item called pandemic adjustment, which was for $724,000, 647 of a deduct off of our state aid. Our foundation aid was frozen at the 1920 level, which was less than what the governor had put out originally. And then an add back was the Federal CARES Act restoration of the same exact amount. So right now, listening to webinars and talking, to other people in the field, we're seeing that the Federal CARES restoration, the federal government gave schools the money directly. The state is taking that money basically back as a deduct. And if they need to make further adjustments, that pandemic adjustment may be a little bit more. But for right now, it's equal. So we can talk about a little bit more about it later, about what we think about state aid. I put in there measurement periods. The governor was very strong about the state really being in bad shape, being $15–16 billion in the red. And he's cautioning about our state aid. So although they passed the budget and they gave us the state aid, there are measurement periods. So if the state does not receive the revenues or their expenditures are more than certain caps, they will look to come back and take some money back from the school districts. So the first measurement period being April 1st to April 30th. So everyone is cautioning school districts, because the budget vote was postponed till at least June 2nd, not to adopt the budget until after April 1st and April 30th, just to see where we are. Just because if you adopt the budget and then you found out at the end of April that you have a deduct, then you've already gone through the process. So for the first part of this, they're telling us to wait until May, which we can legally because of the budget vote being postponed, and let the governor see, kind of where we are. So those are the two things that are new that look different on the state aid runs. Mike, you can come, next slide. This slide you've seen before. This is our tax cap calculation. And again, we can raise the levy by 3.23%. I think this is a really important slide, probably more than ever, because next year, I imagine with what the economy is going through, it's not going to look like this. We are not going to get a cap. We're not going to be able to raise the budget and the levy that much. And the allowable growth factor of 1.8% is tied to CPI. Right now, CPI is probably non-existent or negative. Our tax-based growth factor, although it might be delayed a year, may not be as high as that part. So in looking at this calculation, it's important to know that, although we're trying to keep taxes as low as possible for our taxpayers, we have to look more in the future. We have to look for next year and the year after, because next year and the year after, with the financial condition right now, we're not going to be able to raise the levy that much with all that's going on. Next slide, please. this slide just basically shows us the revenue streams, shows us the state aid, the use of reserves and fund balance, the tax reduction reserve. I had in the budget for 1920. We actually don't need it this year because we are going to have savings in the budget this year, things that we just, expenses that we're not incurring because we're not in school. That reserve has to be used by the 2020-21 school year, so we're going to move it over into the other area for next year. So that's our levy amount. I just want to say one other thing about, and we'll talk a little bit about the open items and the questions later on, but the bus proposition is something that we don't know about yet. What we were understanding about deciding about the budget vote, if we do not go out for a public vote for some reason, we can't have a bus proposition. That needs to be a vote by the public. So that amount there might change a little bit as well. I just wanted to kind of alert you to that. But that's right now is if we're having a budget vote at the beginning of June, we can put the bus proposition on the ballot. Next slide, please. And this is just a slide showing what we'd like our bus proposition to be. That was part of Ron's presentation earlier on a couple months ago. And we would finance that total amount over 5 years to match our transportation state aid at 59.3%. Next slide, please. So our estimated tax increases, which is always an interesting conversation because I have to use current assessed values right now and basic STAR. They have not changed the STAR exemption yet for this year, which is a little bit late. So we use current assessments and what we're presenting on the budget the way it is right this minute. And those would be the tax increases for the average home. Now I know a couple meetings ago we had, just a workshop on how the budget works, what the levy is, why people's taxes went up more than what we thought, even though the tax rate went down, about assessments. So this is using current information at the time and what we would be presenting to the public right now, knowing what we don't know what the assessments will be or what the STAR exemption will be. We wanted to give everybody an idea of how much their taxes would go up. Next slide, please. So this slide is probably the most important slide because we still have questions unanswered. So again, the big question, how long will school be closed? We don't know. Will there be adjustments in the state aid amount at the end of April? That's a big question. I think everyone's trying to wait to see how this will work. There are two other measurement periods. One is May 1st to June 30th, and one is the first quarter of our school year for next year. At any of those 3 times, the governor can decrease the aid. But April is kind of a benchmark. We kind of see what's going on. Will we even have a budget vote? Will it be an absentee ballot type of thing? It will be paper ballots. We had spoken about that. Will the board adopt the budget? And then we would just have a budget and no propositions. If we do vote, when will it be? They said it's postponed till after June 1st. We don't know anything more than that right now. If we vote, how will it be done? Will it be paper absentee ballot? Will the board approve it? We don't know. And then what happens with the board elections? If we don't have a vote, will everybody get a year extension? And those are the kind of things that everyone else is talking about. I'm sure some of you watched the NYSBA webinar on Saturday, which these were all the questions that were unanswered. And although they know that it's important that they make some decisions rather quickly, those decisions haven't quite been made yet. Next slide. So our questions and answers. We'll stay tuned and give you the information as soon as it becomes available to us. Does anyone have any questions?
Yeah, what questions do folks have?
Is somebody waiting for a question?
Go ahead, Mike.
Okay. All right. So my first question is the pandemic adjustment. So if I'm clear, what you said was that the state is reducing the amount that they are going to give the district by $725,000, and that money will be offset directly from the federal government, from what the numbers show. Is that correct?
Yes. So that part of that COVID stimulus package a lot of the money went to the school districts directly and not to the state of New York. So our understanding is that New York State is taking away the amount that we're getting directly from the federal government.
So if the state adjusts how much maybe they'll give us some back or take some more away, will the CARES Act restoration amount change, do we think?
I don't think that the CARES Act restoration will change. There are other avenues for us to explore. So Matt and I both sat on a webinar for FEMA. So there is FEMA money available. We were also told that there is money through child nutrition in New York State for some of the meals that we're giving. So there are other avenues to get revenue back. It's just a matter of which government is going to pay for it, whether it be the state or the federal. It's interesting to look through April just to see what he's going to do. I mean, most of us, knowing that we have money left in this year's budget because we won't expend all of the amounts that we budgeted, that we are trying to put as much money as we can in reserves and in fund balance. So in case the adjustment to state aid comes after July 1, we'll have a way to pay for our budget for 2021. So that's the goal. We're already identifying budget code areas where we know that we will not spend money, and we're going to, save it, put it into fund balance, put it into reserves so that we have money in case a reduction comes after July 1.
And along those lines, with fund balance, are they allowing us to maintain a higher than, I think, 4% of fund balance in order to be able to capture and collect these
I know that New York
underruns?
State, I know New York State ASBO is lobbying them for that. And nothing official has come down, but in talking to other business officials, that's the goal for us. And maybe a management letter comment that we have more than 4%, but that's small in comparison to having the money to actually fund your budget once you get a reduction in state aid.
Mm-hmm. And for the CARES Act, maybe it's a current question, but are we applying for or allowed to do the payroll protection provision?
The payroll protection provision is for small businesses and not for profits, like for 501c3s. It does not apply to school districts and local municipalities.
Okay. So is everybody now being, what's our payroll looking like right now? I don't know what the status is.
So our payroll right now, and you'll see there's another resolution on the board. We are keeping people even to what they would be making. We obviously are not paying substitute employees, but we are paying hourly employees what their normal schedule would have been if we had school open. And they're being paid for time that they normally would have worked. So a time where we designated to be spring break, they would not be paid for that area. They would just be paid for what they normally would have been paid if school were open.
All right, thank you. Other people have questions? I have others, but.
Mike Keeley, can you just unshare the screen so I could see who? Thanks. I don't have any questions about it. Anthony?
Has anybody, I know that we're basing this on assessments that I don't think will be accurate going forward. So I think we'll probably, as soon as we have more information, think about things in probably like a 3-year plan, at least if we want to maintain some of the things that we've added and avoid cuts. Are we able to get or have a plan to get any sort of updated information from the assessors, or do they only do that once a year, or is it possible for them to do an emergency assessment even in the fall or something?
So we'll have the information in the summer on the assessments to do the tax warrant, but I don't think we'll have it before then. I'm not imagining, the the variable, what I can ask the city for is if they can give me an estimate of new properties that are going to come on the tax roll, because that would actually help people, because the burden of the tax levy would be spread over more people. But I don't know if they could give me that information. I can ask.
Anthony, you had your hand up?
Yeah, so I had a question. What I understand from the budget is that it was approved with a 3-month revisit, I guess, for the next year. But is that accurate, what I understand it? And then if so, where's the next deadline where they're going to revisit the budget?
So they're going to revisit the budget at the end of April, and then they're going to revisit it again at the end of June, and then they're going to revisit it again, I believe, in September.
Okay, so there's 3 other times where potentially they can cut us, I guess.
So the important part for April is if we don't adopt the budget for April and we do get a cut, then we decide whether we want to cut some things from our budget or whether we want to use more unappropriated fund balance. So that's the question. So we don't, we want to wait a little while longer just to see if he makes the cut at the end of April. By the end of June, we would have to have adopted the budget because July 1 is our beginning of our fiscal year. So it's kind of a wait and see. We have no idea. I will say that Governor Cuomo starts every news conference by saying that the state is in really financial trouble. So that worries me.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
Emery, on the slide that shows the calculation with the tax base growth factor and the allowable growth factor.
Yes.
So which was which? One of them is related to the tax cap, and the other is related to the fact that City of Beacon and the area is growing. Which is which?
So the tax-based growth factor is about Beacon growing. So that factor allows Beacon's tax levy to grow because of the new properties and that are coming onto the tax roll. The allowable growth factor is based on the consumer price index. So this year it's always either 2%, the greater of 2%. So actually the CPI was 1.8. So that's what we had at the end of December. So that's what we had to use. I'm imagining the consumer price index will be much less than 1.8. We've had years where it was actually negative. So that these are all ways that you can increase your levy. That's what we're a little bit worried about. Because if you don't have those factors to grow your levy is pretty much flat from year to year. But you also have, when you're trying to do a budget, you have contractual expenses that increase every year. So it's kind of hard. You want to make sure that the levy can grow enough to pay your contractual obligations for the following year.
So for the tax base growth factor, I know we've had this for a number of years. Have we seen that the actual amount of what you call it, the different things, the grand list or the basis, has that in fact grown by that much every year?
I think it's difficult to quantify it that way because you're seeing when you get the assessments, especially last year, you saw changes in assessment of current property and you also saw new properties coming onto the tax roll.
Right. So I'm just concerned that with the change in economics, who knows where this is going to play out, that we won't actually see this occur yet, and this will be increasingly borne by the current taxpayers.
We have seen a steady increase of properties coming on the roll. So like if we were asked the city to run grid numbers for us of what properties are added, there are, new properties that are helping pay for the tax levy. I think the bigger question last year was because some people's assessments went up and their taxes went up more than what we had said, considering our tax rate went down. Because our tax rate has gone down the last 2 to 3 years. So that means there's more properties to share it with. It's hard to to equate evenly. I worry about this calculation only because this is the only way we can raise the levy, right? So that whole, I know it's not in front of you right now, but that tax cap calculation is the only way we can raise the levy. And if some of those factors are zero or close to zero, then we don't have a lot of ability to raise the levy. And if he's playing around with our state aid, then I'm kind of really worried about how we make the budget work.
Well, with the amount of money that, when will we know how much we're not going to spend out of this year? And could we, kind of balance, not increase the levy as much and utilize the underruns from this year in order to offset it, because I'm just concerned that the taxpayers are also maybe in various different situations due to this issue.
So we can quantify how much money, in fact, we started already doing that to try to quantify how much we would have in fund balance. My only concern is using it now, to kind of not go up to the tax cap. I don't know if that would be, we won't know what a cut would be coming, in the measurement periods. I was thinking about putting as much into fund balance and reserves as I could to kind of hedge a cut that we don't see coming. Because we won't know about some of these cuts. The one in June and the one over the summer, we will not know about until after our budget is passed. And then it's kind of too late then. If we don't go up to the tax cap, then it's kind of too late for us to do anything with it. I mean, I understand, we want to be conscious of our taxpayers, and I know everybody's hurting in some way, but I don't, I think this year, we're not raising the levy that much. I think with the tax-based growth factor and having more properties, I think that their taxes won't go up that much. But I'm just worried. I'm more worried about going forward than I am this coming year. I mean, I'm actually worried about the year after as well, just because I don't know how quickly New York State, if the federal government bails out New York State, which is another theme that was in the NYSBA webinar, then this might all be for naught. And we might not have a problem with state aid. So I think that's where the arguing is going back and forth between the federal and the state government.
Or if there's political will to increase taxes on the highest earners.
Yeah, which so far has not been discussed. But I also think that I see what you're saying, Mike, but I think that there is a different way to frame it, which is that, what do we need to provide a sound education for our students? And I think it's important to give a real number there, that, so that we can tell everyone that, there are all sorts of things happening right now. The bailouts and the aid bills are ongoing, and I think that they will be ongoing for a while. And so to undermine our budget right now, I think it gives a false sense of what it costs to run the district.
And I think there's
I'm not talking about undermining anything, but really we need to do our part. Everybody else is, struggling or, are challenged. And maybe we need to show that we could do our part. We've added quite a bit of programming, personnel, and really looking at how to streamline and utilize what we have. This may be a good way to show that we can do that we're at that point to do that.
Isn't that what this budget does? I mean, we're stopping the expansion that we had planned earlier in the year before this came. We don't want to cut programming because we're still not up to the kind of programming that many other districts have.
We are, I think what we just saw, that our levy increase would be over 3%, 3.2%. So that's higher than the other districts that only have to live within the tax cap. So that's why I'm just challenging us to see, should we, take a break from the growth factor this year and streamline with what we have to do our part for our taxpayers.
My personal opinion on that is I think there could be some long-term impacts to that, because it's not that you're losing the money just for the next year when you don't go up to the allowable growth, the tax growth, but then that's a ripple effect over many years. There's a domino effect that the years that you're not going to go up as high again and so forth. And projecting, I don't think this is the 2021 school year is going to be an issue with the aid, but the 21-22 school year I think is going to be the bigger issue. just because there's going to be some long-term impact. And looking at it long-term, you don't want to impact the student's education, because then you go into that domino effect, whereas you take money out of education. And I think that we're doing some really good things in the community right now. And it's because we're in a good spot and we have the reserves and are being fiscally responsible, such as the meals and coordination of that, the Chromebooks, the one-on-one, we did that without the smart bonds, smart bond money, and having to be able to do that to get us up to the technology. Thank goodness that happened prior to this pandemic happening, because we would be lost if we didn't have that one-to-one piece. And that took some innovation to do that and stuff. So I'm very cautious about not going up to the tax cap, but I think it's definitely warranted.
I agree with what Anthony White is saying very strongly. We should always go up to the tax cap, because you never get it back if you give it up. You only start from a lower base from then on forever.
I have a question. Can you all hear me?
Yep.
What avenues do we have for advocacy on either to appeal directly to the governor saying that this is the wrong time to be making cuts to education, maybe reaching out to Jonathan Jacobson to see what kind of advocacy he has, or passing a resolution that we do not agree with making these kind of cuts?
I totally agree with you, James. And I think it is actually really important to understand that this is actually a cut. You know, a flat budget from last year is a cut. Our expenses have gone up. TRS went up quite a bit. I've been personally writing our representatives at least once a week, but I think a board resolution or a board letter would be really good. And I think also collecting some of the challenges that we face right now, educating students, and what we project to, you know, in the fall, even if we're going back to school normally, we're going to have kids who have not been in school for a long time. We're going to have, you know, a lot of kids that need extra attention for a variety of reasons. So I think trying to collect some of those stories and share those concerns would be really important. I think NYSSBA's been doing a great job. I think their webinars have been super informative, and they've been great about informing us about what's going on. But that personal toll has not been told, and it's very, very real.
This is Anthony. I don't have an objection telling Assemblyman Jacobson, I guess, where we're at, and our senator, state senator as well. But from what I understood, I did hear Assemblyman Jacobson speak about this issue, about the budget, and there were cuts in various different places, but they didn't cut. So in their eyes, they kept the budget flat. The school, for the schools, they didn't. In lieu, so I guess the choice was increase, keep it flat, or decrease, and they chose flat, obviously. So
I think that the tricky thing about that, which is I think what Meredith was saying, is I think that gives lawmakers an opportunity to say that we didn't cut, but we know from putting these budgets together that our expenses go up, and so anything that remains flat is in effect a cut in how it actually rolls out. And so I think it's very important that we correct that perception. It's fine if they did the best they could, but we can't let this perception, you know, remain. We'll be battling against this for years to come about this, you know, flat budget. We need to be honest about what this means. It means that more money is going to the pension and benefit, you know, draw, which is a promise that we're committed to. That increases. That means less money goes to kids and funding for programs for kids. And so that's, you know, we still are able to meet our obligations, but it's not, by no means is it not a cut in education funding.
I agree.
Matt, did you have anything else with the workshop?
I did have one more thing I wanted to ask.
Sure.
So I'm not saying that we should cut out the growth factor. What I'm challenging us is to, you know, understand, what if we don't see the increase in the, the growth of the tax base? Maybe we'll get a better view by the time we do adopt a budget to see if that's going to be an issue or not. But if we base it on this growth factor and then it doesn't come around, it really is going to have a negative impact on the taxpayers who might be challenged already. Not looking at cutting funding for kids and not supporting education. I mean, we've done that all these years, but really trying to be sensitive to the situation.
I understand that. I
And I
think
do
Yeah,
think-
I didn't mean to imply that either, Mike. I think I understood what you were saying. I just think that we have a lot of millionaires and billionaires in New York State, and before we worry about middle income community taking a hit and losing programming for kids, we should probably advocate that the governor look at other revenue opportunities within the state.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, no, absolutely. On the state side, yeah, to fund us appropriately. But we have a great team, we have a great plan, and I think that we can do some streamlining with what we have and continue to improve. So that's why you need to be challenged at some times. So that's what I'm doing.
All right.
That's all I have.
All right. Thank you. Matt, did you have anything else for the workshop?
No.
All right. So reviewing the agenda, we do have open to the public this, we're going to try. So if there's anybody on the web that has a question, if you could please type it in the chat, and then Mike Keeley will unmute you so you could say it to the public. I'm just going to give a minute or two.
So,
All right,
so
I'm
how
not
can you
seeing
tell
anything.
if someone's typing or not? Do you get like a 3 dots or anything, or?
No, that's come on. I was going to say, I'm looking, is anybody replying? I don't see anything. So I was going to move forward. Mike, do you see anything on your end as a host?
No.
Okay. All right. So we're going to go on from the public comment, and we're going to go to the superintendent's report. So I'm going to turn it over, Matt, to do the superintendent's report.
Sure. I'll be quick tonight. I just have a few things I want to update everybody on. One is, like I said at the last meeting, we've been focused on a few key things. The food program has expanded since the last board meeting. We are now serving on Mondays and Wednesdays multiple meals, and we're serving somewhere between 900 and 1,000 kids at each time. And so that's been a dramatic increase since the board meeting, our last board meeting, where we were serving about 300 kids. We added a delivery option, so we're delivering to close to 100 families as well with our buses, and we have different employees who are volunteering either at the pickup spots or at the delivery parts. So that's been great. We've also been able to partner with a number of community organizations, Fairground, Beacon Mutual Aid, Common Ground Farm, the Dutchess County Food Bank, and Fairground has been doing dinner bags for families, and then on Wednesdays now we have this free groceries. It's really for beyond our families, but just for the whole community. But we've linked it up with our meals program, so it's been a big success for us. And just a huge thanks to Karen Pagano and Ron Mackey for making the meals happen with her staff of amazing people. And Ron basically is changing and adding to his routes every single week. Because we keep adding folks to the delivery as circumstances change for people. So just big thanks to them. Our distance learning, we kind of launched, we launched a little bit more revamped version of distance learning on April 1st. And I think it's been going reasonably well. And so we actually met, we have a kind of a large group of administrators and teachers, about 20 people on a committee. And the committee has some smaller groups that meet, but we met again. We met several weeks ago to design this plan. And we actually met today to kind of debrief and see what changes we're going to make. And so the main thing we're going to be coming out, and I think this impacts our middle and high school students more than elementary for sure, is we'll be sharing our grading, how we're going to do grades for this fourth quarter. And so we're going to have a few more meetings this week and then share with parents early next week what our grading plan is for fourth quarter. We're going to be really guided by some of our, key beliefs with this, and that's compassion and understanding. And so we're going to try to create a grading system that really tries to look at what families and kids are going through right now, but yet does hold them to some expectations as well. And so that will be coming out soon. Another thing we've been working on is Wi-Fi. And so Mike Keeley and Adamchek and probably some others were involved today. So we do have Wi-Fi, and I'll inform the community of this tomorrow. We do have Wi-Fi in all of our school parking lots, which I know is not ideal, but at least it's like another way that people can connect to Wi-Fi. And we got some great news this week. We found 2 companies that are able to ship hotspots to us. And so one is able to do it a little bit more quickly. So we're hoping that we get at least the first installment of hotspots from one company next week, because we do have a number of families identified that need support with Wi-Fi. And then the second company we're working with, probably in about 3 to 4 weeks, hopefully on the 3 side, we'll be able to ship some hotspots to us as well. So we're really trying to work hard to meet people's needs during this time. We are having lots of meetings virtually with each school is having meetings, principals and teachers, and then we at my level have meetings with people across the district, trying to fine tune what we're doing. It goes without saying that we'd much rather be in school right now, and that distance learning is not what we all signed up for, but we're making the best of it. And we're trying to also plan right now for every contingency, and which is a struggle, because we know the same thing that everyone else knows, that there's a lot of questions. So we're working hard, and we're trying to just every day sort of work out more logistical issues, either with food or the learning side. And but a lot of people across the district from every position have stepped up. And I also just want to say a huge thank you to the community for being supportive of the district during this time. And I say every chance I get, like, if people need help with something, please to reach out to me or their child's principal or their child's teacher, and we will try to connect families or help them ourselves whenever we can. But that's it, Anthony.
All right, great. Any questions for Matt?
Yeah,
All right.
I have a question.
Okay.
Well, first off, Matt, I just want to say thank you for everything you, your administrative team, and all of our teachers are doing right now. It's kind of unfathomable. As an educator myself, I have one class to deal with, and what you're dealing with is such huge lift. It's amazing, particularly on the academic side. Something I've been thinking about a lot is about the sort of emotional side our students are going through and how we're responding to that. On the more acute scale, I'm reading articles all the time about upticks in domestic violence. Obviously, tensions are high, which in volatile homes can make it more severe. It can be taken out on children. But I also think about how our teachers and counselors are mandated reporters, and they're seeing children every day, typically. I'm a little concerned, just sort of if we have any kind of, or if NISBA has any recommendations, or if we have any protocol for thinking about how to check in with kids remotely. Certainly on the more acute, when we're talking about abuse, but even just in general, if there's any kind of strategy for how to reach out to kids in not an academic sense, but in an emotional sense. Yeah.
I think the main thing is just to do it. And so our social workers and guidance counselors and psychologists. Not that it's just on them, but they've been doing reaching out with hundreds of kids since this started, just trying to connect and check in. And quite honestly, I think most of our teachers are doing the same. You know, when we entered into this, we really focused on connecting and not just focused on getting work done. And a lot of teachers have really adopted that and are also trying to check in on kids. So we don't necessarily have like a set protocol, but we are relentlessly trying to check in with kids. And also the administrators in each building basically have a running list of families and kids that they haven't heard from in a few days. And those are the ones that we're doubling back on to make sure that they're doing okay. And so each school, you know, has, I guess, spreadsheets of like, you know, just sort of listing concerns with families and also families that need much more regular check-ins. And each teacher is really keeping an eye out for this as well. And so it's a great question. I think it's the most important thing right now, and everybody's feeling it in one way or the other. And so I think it makes it harder in some regards, but it also makes it easier for us to see because every family is going through it. Every one of our employees is having some sort of struggle, I'm sure, at home as well. And so it makes us, and I hope, and I think it makes us more sensitive to it. So we're really trying, and we meet very, very frequently with our principals, and they meet with their, you know, care teams in the building, just always checking on kids. That's our main focus right now is kind of the folks we're worried about and just constantly trying to reconnect.
Great, thank you.
Any other questions for Matt?
I have one. The wonderful tool we have called Power School. I can see in my own case, my students' case anyway, most teachers are not updating that. I'm wondering if we're missing an opportunity or whether it's feasible for them to do so. I think maybe one of the ones that I'm familiar with is doing that. But it's one of those things that, frankly, I miss. We don't have the kind of contact that we did back when school was in session. People seem to be updating all the stuff we have. I realize that there's been some changes in grading and how we do marking and so on. Could you discuss that, please, and bring us up to date as to where we are and where it looks like we're going, to the extent that you know?
Sure. No, I think our delay in using that centers completely on what you said. It centers on the grading piece. And so we had a good meeting about grading today, and we're going to have 2 more meetings this week to try to finalize it. And, you know, what teachers at each level talked about today was creating something that's very sensitive to what kids are going through, but also communicates to parents in some regard, maybe not what it's looked like in the past, but like whether they're approaching expectations, meeting expectations, or going beyond expectations. And so I think once we get that set, we'll probably see more updates in the traditional manner. But I think most teachers have been very hesitant to start grading. I think their main focus has been just making sure and working with kids to just log on and to connect. And so once we get the grading system set, you'll probably see some more updates, I'm imagining, on that level. Although I don't think it will look like it looked like in the past. You know, the teachers are using Google Classroom pretty much exclusively as a way to communicate with the students. And so I think once grading happens, there'll be some updates through Power School, but I don't think it will look exactly like it looked.
Great.
Thank you.
All right. Seeing no other questions, I'm going to move to committee reports, including board comments. So I'll start out with Kristen with facilities.
I think we're going to plan a meeting possibly next week to discuss some changes in staffing at the engineering architect firm that we awarded our contract to after our search, and just to kind of see where we go from there. If we're going to, you know, just kind of discuss how that impacts our plans going forward. and maybe just even have some sort of way to touch base about planning for the capital project and what that even looks like now. And I just wanted to, yeah, that's all I have I'll let you know, like, once we get that scheduled. I don't think we have even a tentative time. Matt, did we talk about a tentative time for that to happen?
I'm wide open, so whatever you guys come up with is fine with me.
Okay, I'll reach out and try to find out everyone's schedule, and we'll get something going. Does anybody object to meeting during the day at all?
I would just need to know a couple days ahead of time, just to make sure I don't have any other meetings.
Sure.
Today, I'm not objecting to it. I would just need to like a week's notice.
Okay.
Yeah, I would still working full out. So I would still prefer in the evening. Wednesday, even 6 o'clock would be fine. A little earlier than normal would work for me.
Pretty much any time.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, I'm trying to consolidate everything. Just having my kids here all the time. I'm working still full time and trying to pay attention to them. So I've been trying to limit my nighttime stuff, but that's fine. 6 o'clock should be good. All right, I'll get an email out to everybody. And just wanted to echo the other sentiments that were shared about how really proud I am of the leadership Matt and the administrators have shown, and the incredible staff. And I think that the priority has been in the right place, which is holding the community together and first, and then I think that this is just a big blow, and it is. I think a lot of our kids and a lot of us are going through a form of grief right now. So it's very hard to be task driven when you feel like there's a lot of loss, and so I feel like really supporting each other and showing what that looks like is a big lesson to come out of this, and that informs the resiliency of a community. And so thank you for that. That's all.
Thanks for Kristen. Thank you, Kristen. We're going to go to James with policy.
Hi. I wanted to begin by echoing what Kristen was saying, and I probably said it before, and I don't think it can be said enough. It's just thank you to all of our administrators, of course, and to your leadership. It's been an invaluable time, and we've really handled it so well. But also to our food services, Karen Pagano, her whole team. I've been out there with Fairground handing out bags, and it's just really inspiring and incredible to see what a service the school is being to our whole community. I've talked to people individually who have lost their work and they can't go to the grocery store and they can't afford a lot of this food, and they say that they've been able to really get through based on what the schools are doing and the volunteer group. So thank to everyone and to our teachers. It's really incredible.
James, can you hold up 1 second? Craig, can you mute
Sure.
yourself? We're getting background from you.
Is that better?
We could try it. Go ahead.
Okay. For our policy committee, we postponed or we canceled the last meeting. It was an extra meeting anyway that we were trying to squeeze in. The next one is scheduled to be, let me just check it's on the 4th of May. Matt, I don't want to add any more to you all.
No, I have some policies. I was going to just briefly look at them and then send them your way. So we're ready.
Okay,
we're ready to move forward.
Okay, excellent. Then send them our way, and we look forward to that. And if you want to put any extra ones that are on there, like I said, I think I have a lot of extra time, so we can get a head start on those.
Okay.
Okay, excellent. So that's to say that is, my schedule is, I'm completely working from home right now, so my schedule is completely open. If we don't have to do it in the evening, but for the rest of the committee, just let me know what works with you. Does anyone have any preferences in terms of time?
Just the same that I had with F&O.
Say again, Anthony, sorry.
Just the same that I had with the facilities is that I need at least a week's notice so I could just schedule around what we schedule.
Alyssa, Anthony?
Evening's still better for me because I'm working all day, just like as if I was in the office. So unfortunately, my days are not really freed up at all.
Right. So 7 o'clock?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm still working. Even though I'm
Okay.
working from home, I'm still working.
Okay, great. All right, we'll do 7 o'clock on May 4th.
All right. Any
That's all I
questions for James?
Yeah, James, did we get anything for this month though? The review or no?
No, we didn't.
I'll send those out.
Okay,
Okay.
great. Okay, thanks, Matt.
All right. Flora, wellness?
Yeah, so wellness isn't meeting right now, obviously, and I spoke to Dr. Roland today, and we're anticipating a delay with assessing the wellness policy, although there's no word on what that's going to look like. So there isn't much to report, but I do feel like wellness is happening all over the community right now, and so I want to thank everybody who's pitching in, the volunteers, the staff. Karen Pagano has been so amazing, and the transportation department for making everything that they're doing possible, and Dr. Landau for being sort of this rock in this crazy storm. I seriously don't know how you do it. I would have lost my mind by now. So thank you for being sane, so the rest of us don't have to be. That's it. That's all I got.
Any questions for Flora? Flora, I just have a comment. When you said that the community is doing well, there are some really good things going on in the community. I know that some people have reached out, and like there was one instance where they did like take a Super Bowl square pool where it has 100 squares, and they people donated $30 for a square. And what they did is so that was $3,000, and then they donated. If your name was picked or your number was drawn, that person got to pick a business to donate the money to. They could pick one business to give 500 or two businesses to do 250. And then the same people that organized that did an Easter egg one where they had, I think it was up to $3,500, or maybe it could have been more, but they picked eggs, and they picked like 5 or 6 eggs, and they donated, and the money was donated to local businesses. So people are doing really good things.
Was that Tom and Megan?
Yes.
Yeah. So my neighbors. Yeah.
Yep.
It's been really, even though there's a lot of darkness, it's been really encouraging to see all of the really wonderful things that are happening in the community. So.
Yeah, it's really nice to see how the community is coming together in tough times. So thank you, Flora. Anthony, diversity.
Well, there's nothing to report. The diversity committee is a school board committee, and not school board, a district committee, and obviously under these conditions we're not meeting. I do have a board comment question or something. So first of all, thank you, Matt, administrative team, all the staff and personnel that have been contributing with the Feeding the Children program. Your report about reaching about 1,000 families, I think, or meals, was it? I believe it was. It was pretty remarkable. Thank you for all that, and thank you for also trying to make sure everyone's connected with the Wi-Fi and internet. There was a suggestion, I think James started, and Kristen also kind of weighed in about correcting the perception that our budget is flat. Are we going to? After that conversation, it was the end of the workshop. I didn't see any follow-up action on that. Is that something we put on the agenda? Is something that we defer to the I'm sorry, Craig, I can't remember your committee's name right now. Yeah, I mean, what is that something that we need to discuss and take action, put it on someone's list or something?
I have no problem with it going to the Public Relations Committee to draft something for the board.
We need a motion for that?
No, I think that next time the Public Relations, they could just work on drafting something and then bring it to the next board meeting.
Great.
Anything else, Anthony?
That's it. Thank you very much.
All right. Alyssa?
I just want to apologize first for being late. I'm a day behind on life here because we had power outage for a day and a half. So I didn't even know what day it was. I was making dinner and then happened to look at my phone and saw that we have a meeting tonight. So I'm sorry about that. I don't have really any comments except what others have already said, which is thank you to Matt and your staff. You guys are doing an amazing job. And the feedback that I'm seeing and hearing is really, really good. So I'm very proud of what we've accomplished during this ridiculous time. So thank you. That's all I have.
All right. Thank you, Alyssa. Mike?
I want to also reflect appreciation to Matt and the leadership, central office and also through the school district, the schools for keeping things going. And, and look forward to, hopefully we'll be able to reopen before the end of school. So thank you for all of the work you've done. Just also want to recognize, Matt and Emery and all the team for what you have accomplished, or what we all have accomplished over the last couple of years with the budget and programming and bringing in teachers and reducing school sizes and really also getting out to a longer view, 3-5 year plan. So I think we're really set up to really continue to improve. So I do appreciate that. So that's all I had. Thanks.
And I'm sorry, Craig, I forgot the Public Relations Committee, and when Anthony's comments came, it reminded me. So, Craig, you want to do an update on Public Relations?
Sure. Can you hear me good?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So we had that comments earlier about what kind of advocacy we might do under the circumstances. It's really kind of hard to figure, but I think we should try to meet. Maybe we can tag team with the facilities meeting if Kristen gets that set up, and I'll be there for one night, 2 meetings, or here for one night, 2 meetings, wherever it is. There are a couple things to report. Basically, what happened is that the state budget adoption became something that nobody's ever seen before. And I thought I'd seen it all with some of the antics that have gone on in past years, but this is a new one. And they basically, at this point, they can only adopt anything by acclamation, which means if one person disagrees with it, the whole thing goes down. So it's like not even having a legislature almost. So I'm very concerned about that. And I'd like to hear more about exactly what they think they can do. So if you guys have had discussions with our representatives about that question of just what kind of juice do they have these days, I'd like to hear it. But there's a number of things in the enacted budget that are worth note. And as Matt indicated earlier, one of the things that we don't know about is what's happening with school board elections and petitions and the adoption of the budget. We do know that it is not going to happen until after June 1. But what we don't know is when we're going to get more information from the governor's office about what kind of special arrangements will be made. And that, as you know, there are 3 of us whose terms expired on June 30th. And that's the same for boards around the state, at least in different iterations, depending upon what kind of a district it is and how many is on your board. But one logical thing that they ought to do is extend the terms of incumbents, because otherwise we start to have a whole new set of problems about just who's on the board and who's got legitimate standing to be there. We don't need that kind of problem right now. And it's not of our doing. There's also people who might want to run for a board seat. What are they supposed to do? So I've been carrying on a conversation with Brian Fussler at NISBA. He's the director of the Outreach Advocacy Wing there, and had a response that was shared with you by email earlier today. If you haven't looked at it, please do. They are working on it. And I know the governor is a very busy person, and state ed is very busy because we're all juggling. But this does need to be resolved. So we put a little pressure on there, and I hope that that helps somewhat. So we should see more very soon because time's a wasted. When they adopted the enacted budget, as Anne-Marie described for you, we pretty much came out flat, is a good way to put it. The pandemic adjustment is down, and the Federal CARES Act money is in, and they basically equal each other. But as Meredith mentioned, that's quite correct. Because there is inflation, and because we do have contract increases, not to mention the fact that we have hopes and dreams and goals, it winds up being effectively a cut. So one thing that the state budget process did not do was to attempt to raise any kind of special levy or special tax. Some of you may remember one time we did have a millionaire's tax. Whatever happened to that? I mean, it's just like totally gone by the boards. Didn't even get a good discussion from what I can see. So who's going to be on the short end of this stick? Well, to some extent, all the local property taxpayers, but to the main extent, it's going to be the students who are not going to see the kind of advances that we've been working on, and will probably see some kind of setbacks if nothing happens to improve this. At the federal level, we seem to have a nice, wonderful royal debate going on about who's got the power. I know in our 7th grade classes, we teach about the Constitution and the amendments there too. There's a 10th Amendment thing that kind of clarifies what the relationship is between the states and the federal government. I suggest President Trump should read it. But anyway, getting back to the state of New York, there are some things that happened that we've talked about before that actually were positive. The governor's proposal to dissolve 10 expense-based aids into foundation aid was rejected by the legislature. Pleased to hear that because we advocated in that direction. There were proposals to change building aid and transportation aid in a way that would not have been good for us, but that was also rejected. So that was a plus. The building level financial data apparently is still in, and I'm not sure how that's going to come out. If Mrs. Corderoni wants to detail us on that at some point, it would be good to hear about. I'm not sure what the latest is, really. There was that time off for voting law, which was going to, in our view, be adverse to keeping education going. So that was reverted to require only 2 hours of paid leave, only for employees who do not have a 4-hour window, either before or after work. So that was a plus as far as I can see. So we have some good things to look at on the legislative outcome. That's my long-winded report. Questions, comments, thoughts?
Any questions for Craig?
I just have a question about, we're talking about writing up a resolution. Would you want to pass around a draft as that? Would you be writing that in meeting, or assume you would draft something up? Would you want to share that with us before the next meeting?
I think
I'm not sure what the timing should be. Anthony, you have some thoughts on that?
Sure. So I think once the committee comes with it, they could share it definitely before the meeting, but I think the committee needs to draft it first. So after the committee report, we could get it right out to you, so the rest of the board can see it prior to the meeting.
Okay, this is
Our
a funny
next
question.
meeting is set for, what was the date for the next meeting of the board?
24th.
What's it?
April 24th is the next meeting.
Oh, yeah.
Well, before,
Okay.
I'm not saying the next
Yeah.
board meeting, but before the board meeting when it would be adopted.
Okay, great. It doesn't, or just a side question,
Sure.
but I probably should know this. Who's on that committee? Craig? Is anyone else?
Alyssa, Meredith.
Okay, great. Thanks.
It would be next
So
Wednesday
did-
after F&O. That's what he was talking about meeting.
Okay, so we're looking at next Wednesday?
Yeah.
For a meeting? And so facilities at 7, would that be it?
No, I think we said facilities at 6 possibly.
6, I can do that, yeah.
All right, what was the date?
Oh, the date would be this coming Wednesday, right? For our committee meeting?
The
I
22nd?
so thought it was next Wednesday, right?
Yeah.
22nd.
Next Wednesday would be the 22nd, yes.
So facilities
So
at 6
if facilities goes at 6, what time could advocacy, et cetera, go?
Well, it really depends on how much ground we think we need to cover. We could probably do it in an hour, 2 hours.
I think there's going to be some lengthy discussion.
Okay.
Yeah, there could be. Yeah, it could be.
So say 8 o'clock,
maybe
Greg.
maybe we ought to allow then 2 hours for that facilities meeting?
Yeah, so say 8
So 8
o'clock.
o'clock?
6 to 8. We'll do 6 to 8, and then if you wanted to do 8 or 8:30 for public relations.
Well, why don't we figure, call it for that? We have to publicize this, so if we have to delay it, at least we've set a time, so.
Why don't you say 8 o'clock, Craig, for the 22nd?
On the 22nd. That sounds good. 8 o'clock on the 22nd, and then the facilities would be 6 o'clock on the 22nd.
That's right.
Correct.
We'll have to figure out how we're doing it. Probably a phone conference or what? Are we going to
Well, probably
sit in
this
the
or
conference
Google
room
Hangout.
6 feet apart or what?
We could do this this platform, Craig.
Same thing as Zoom?
Yep.
Okay.
All right. Any other questions for Craig? All right, Meredith, you're up.
I feel the same as everyone else. I think that the district is doing a great job and the priorities are perfect on the health and mental health of students before we get into the other stuff. And I think a lot of compassion in terms of online learning since it's so new to everyone. I don't have any committee reports. We don't have another curriculum meeting scheduled. Eric, will that be, what's happening with that? Will we be picking that up again?
I think a lot of the curriculum work has been going through the committees that we've had established throughout the course of the day, only being because we've had to make changes on the fly, like to distance learning plan, into grading practices, etc. I think once we can get all of those things set, we may be able to come back together after that point and have some meetings. But a lot of the pieces that we were talking about were for next year, and being that the budget is going to be flat, we may have to hold off. So we kind of have to play it by ear before, we make that decision moving forward.
Okay, keep me posted. So yeah, that's it for me.
That's it, Meredith?
Mm-hmm.
All right, any questions for Meredith? All right, I have no comments besides, great job with the administrative staff that they're doing and the principals as well as the teachers. I know my kids, it took a while to get back in the schedule. Like once they started this week, we really got back into the schedule. I think what really helped was that flexible Friday and the virtual field trip Friday helped a ton. So they had fun with that on last Friday. And so that gave them something to look forward to in the projects and stuff. So good job with that, all administrators. All right, looking back. All right, next is new business. We do have a discussion and budget vote for the Dutchess County School Boards. And this is a roll call. Hold on, I'm sorry, I'm just trying to pull it up. All right, so
I think Anne Marie was trying to talk, but she's not unmuted yet, or what?
Okay, I unmuted myself. Okay. It's for discussion purposes, Anthony. The vote is the 24th board meeting.
Oh, okay. And so we did, I know Matt put in an update that if you have any questions, they were going to come to a board meeting, but due to the school closures, if you have any questions, I think Matt said you could email him and he'll forward to Dr. Hooley, or he gave you Dr. Hooley's email, so you can email them directly. But all the information on the BOCES budget is there, as well as the 3 candidates. And
So I'll have to look for the email. I may have a few questions for him now that I see this presentation.
Sure. So I think it was in a Friday update that Matt gave, Mike.
Mike, you can just email me and I can send them to Dr. Hooley if you want.
Okay.
There's also an email on the PowerPoint of the presentation, I'm pretty sure.
All right, I'll look for, I'm sure it is. Okay. Because basically we don't really have much of a say in this unless we're going to back out of BOCES, which we're not going to do. That's kind of my view of it.
Great.
So I'll put together some questions and route them through, I'll give them to you, Matt.
Okay, sounds good.
Any other questions about the BOCES budget? All right, going to the other new business, discussion about the 2020 census. This is something I know Flora reached out. We were going to put it on the last board meeting, but we weren't sure how the platform of the video conference was going to go. So we felt a little bit more comfortable, so we added it on. Flora, did you want to start that discussion?
I can. I should have. I wish I had seen that it was on there. I've been a little more prepared. But yeah, so this is a discussion that I've been having with Dr. Landau and Julie Shiroshi before COVID sort of took over. And we were talking about just making families in the district aware that filling out the census is something that's not only safe for them to do, but it's also really critical to the future of our funding and to, citizens of the state getting, everything that they're owed. So there was some language which I will send around. I'm going to have to look through my email and find it, that we were talking about sharing out with the community. I don't know, given everything that's going on, how we want to do that or what that would look like. Obviously it's still a critical thing, maybe now more than ever. So that's where I had begun. We had initially talked about making April, Census Awareness Month, and then communicating in every district communication, sort of mentioning something about it. So I don't know, Matt, if you've had a chance to think about this or what you would want it to look like now, given everything that's going on. But that's sort of where we ended. And there's certainly language we could use. It's just how we want to use it. So.
Yeah, I'm happy to pull that and just start communicating it in some of my communications. And, it seems like it's more important now than ever. So I'll just pull up the stuff from our meeting. It seems like a really long time ago, and start communicating. But I'll run it past you first.
Yeah, I mean,
if that makes sense.
Yeah, that's great. And I'll send to everyone, but to you, so that you can start making use of it. The language we had come up with. Yeah. Okay. So that's really all I have. I mean, unless somebody has a question.
I'd love to. Can I just chime in real quick in regards to the census? I just wanted to say it for anyone who might be listening. I actually did my census today. It's been on my to-do list for a long time. But we did it online, and it was really easy. It's my2020census.gov. Just wanted to say it, since I feel like we should just want to say the site every time we can. It's very, very simple. It's very quick. Some of the questions felt a little invasive, just for me personally, but I decided it is worth it. You just need to say your birthday, your name, and your address of all the people who live there. So it wasn't as invasive as some things, but that is just to be prepared. I think it's worth it, and you should do it. But that's how you do it.
Any other questions, comments?
Yeah, I mean, is that something that are we encouraged to blast it out on the Facebook, social media, robocall, or we're just kind of letting people find their way there?
I mean, I know James had brought it up previously, but then there was an article, I think it was from NISBA's publication, but again, it's been a while. And they actually were encouraging, sharing it and promoting it in communications, and creating a census month, census awareness month. So it's definitely something that districts are being encouraged to do, or at least they were being encouraged to do. Yeah.
Because we do have that digital sign at the end of Mattawan too.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah.
We can add it to that.
All right. Any other questions, comments? I'm sorry, blindsided you, Flora.
No, I should do all the reading, but I'm working and teaching, so it's hard, as everyone knows.
All right, so we're going to go to the consent agenda. The use of the consent agenda permits the Board of Education to make more effective use of its time by adopting a single motion to cover those relatively routine matters, which are included. Any member of the board who wishes to discuss individually a particular piece of business on a consent agenda may so indicate, and the item will be considered and voted on separately, thus preserving the right of all board members to be heard on any issue. Is there anything on the consent agenda a board member would like pulled? Hearing none, I need a motion to adopt the consent agenda 10.01 through 10.16.
So moved.
That was Anthony.
Second.
That was Kristen. Comments or questions? Hearing or seeing none. Can you guys, when you say A or nay or yes or no, can you just do a thumbs up as well, just so I could do a visual to make sure? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Craig, were you opposed?
No,
Okay.
I voted aye.
All right. 9-0. All right. I need a motion to adjourn to executive session to review the employment history of particular individuals and to seek legal advice from the school attorney, state law, client, attorney-client privilege, and the board is not expected to take action after executive session.
So moved.
Second.
Was that Anthony and Kristen? I'm sorry, I don't have the screen up.
Laura.
Oh, Flora.
Oh, Alyssa, sorry. I can't see. You're not on my screen. You just pop up as a special guest star. Oh, there you
So,
are.
question about that.
Yep.
And I probably should have read my emails closer. How are we doing that?
So you're going to go to your BOE email, and you're going to look at there's 9 tiles on the top right-hand corner. And if you click on the 9 tiles, you'll see that there's a Google Meet. You can go to Google Meet, and you'll see that there's an invitation in there for you to join the Google Meet, and that's where the executive session will be.
I think you can also just go straight to the invitation that I sent to your inbox too.
Got it. Thank you.
So if I just want to call that number, it'll still work?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Do we know, can we do that and stay in this meeting, or do we have to leave this meeting to go to that?
We got to leave this.
We have to leave this one.
Your camera can't work both.
So is everybody clear on how to get to the executive session?
Do we just jump out of here?
So,
Yes.
Or do we have any action before we leave here?
No, there's no action. The adjournment of the meeting will be in the executive session. So, and that's the only action that we would take is after the executive session, we'd adjourn the meeting. So we could do that in executive session.
Okay.
So we'll leave here, but Craig, did you have a question?
I just found it. I can join by phone. I see the number there, and then there's a pin.
Yep.
Yep.
Okay, are we taking a little bit of a break or what?
No, if you need to go to the
So
bathroom,
straight,
jump right in.
straight in.
All right.
I'm ready.
See ya.
All right.
Okay.
See you guys
Hang on.
there. Bye-bye. Thank you all.